Alright guys, good morning. So today and for the rest of the week, we're going to be focusing on the scientific method. And this is sort of something fun for me because it leads to, doing a small experiment at your house. So whenever we are, thinking of the scientific method, we first have to understand what it actually is. So the scientific method is a process for experimentation there we go. It's a process for experimentation that is used to explore observations and answer questions. Does it mean that all scientists will follow exactly this process? No. Some areas of science can be more easily tested than others. So we're going to go through the steps of the scientific method. Okay? So the first step is to make an observation. So making an observation. Step 2, you are going to ask a question. And that question is basically based off the observation you are doing. Step 3 is do background research. Number 4, construct a hypothesis. Number 5, test with an experiment. Number 6, analyze data. 7, draw conclusions. And then the last one, number 8, is to communicate results. Now, there's a bunch of tiny steps in between these steps, right? But these are the major ones, and you can go and look for the scientific method, and you might get something different, right? And that is totally okay. Again, that's why I said in different sciences there are going to be different methods or different steps you're going to follow. Okay, so now we're going to go more into detail onto what it is to, basically break this down with an example. So I'm going to move this up right there. And the first one that we talked about was making observations. Now I'm only going to cover, part of the scientific method today, and the other half I'm going to cover it tomorrow because there's a little bit more practice for the second part. So the first one is making observations. And basically, this is the things you notice about an environment using your five senses. So, the things you notice about an environment. Using your five senses. So your five senses are going to be sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Okay, and as an example for making an observation, I'm going to focus on an experiment on frogs. So imagine that you're a scientist and you're collecting water samples at a pond. So you notice a frog with 5 legs instead of 4. As you start looking around, you start seeing, right, that other frogs have extra limbs. So for example, an extra eye, or no eyes, even some of these limbs or legs coming out of their mouth. So these observations or things you're noticing about the environment using your 5 senses. So I'm going to put example. Okay, I noticed a frog with 5 legs. I also noticed some frogs have more than 2 eyes. Some frogs have no eyes, and some have legs coming out of their mouth. Some have legs coming out of its mouth. Okay, and all I was doing while I was at that pond was collecting water samples. But these are observations that I used using, or that I saw using my five senses. So, just seeing these frogs with extra limbs, okay, made me create a question. Okay, so that leads us to step number 2. Ask a question. So I'm going to move it up right there. Okay, ask a question. So, based on my observations, now I have to formulate a question, right? So, my observations were that there was, frogs with extra limbs. And so, I'm going to formulate a couple of questions that might be testable or I just want to answer. Okay, so I'm just going to put example. One question might be, why are so many frogs deformed? Another question may be, is there something in their environment causing these defects? For example, like water pollution. Now, at this point, I don't know what's going on in that pond, right? I don't know what's going on. All I know is what I saw, and now I have 2 questions. Why are there so many frogs deformed? And is there something in the environment that is causing the frogs to have extra limbs? Now, the last part we're going to be covering today is research. Okay, so doing background research. So that's going to be step number 3. Do background research. Okay, do background research. Now, when I work with science fair, I ask my kids to have at least 10 sources. And it depends on what you are actually looking for, right? And this background research is basically existing knowledge about this topic. So no matter what you observe, you need to find out what is already known about your question. So, what is already known about your question? Okay, is anyone else doing research on deformed frogs? So we're going back to our example. Okay, is anyone already doing research on deformed frogs. Okay, that would be my first question. I need to find someone that has already encountered or articles that talk about why frogs are getting deformed, and all that. And if there is someone doing this, what did they find out about, this? And then they tend to lead you to what needs to be done. So for today's assignment, I'm going to provide you 2 images, a before, or maybe 3 images, a before, a during, and an after. And I want you to come up with 3 observations, 2 questions, okay? So on your assignments, I will specify what I'm asking for, and your notes are going to help you because we are going to start working on the lab we are going to do, okay? And I will be doing it with you, and I will be giving you the list of materials tomorrow once we finalize this. All I'm going to say is it has to do with bananas because I love bananas, and I remember doing this in college. So guys, again, your assignment is I'm going to give you 3 pictures, a before, a during, and an after picture. And then I am going to ask from you to give me 3 observations and at least 2 questions you would like to answer. Again, there's no right or wrong answers. Everyone can go in different directions, but I do expect everyone to be completing this. Have a great afternoon, guys. I will be seeing you tomorrow.